So the first thing that I want to make sure we're really understanding is that stress matters. It really, really, really matters. Stress matters in a couple of different types of ways. You have stress about the SATs that you may be taking coming up as a student, and you're worried about whether you're going to get into the right college or not. It's one type of stress. But there's also chronic stress. And that's the stress that we'll talk about today. That's the stress that gets inside you. So stress absolutely matters. This is a powerful quote that I think is helpful at reminding us how powerful we are. So I've come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in the classroom. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and a child humanized or dehumanized. So all of you are extremely powerful. For hours and hours and hours during the day, parents have entrusted you with their children to essentially build their brains, because that's what happens in child development. And so we have all sorts of different options about how we respond. And in those relationships that many of you all probably shared earlier, think about the different elements that were true about how you showed up. And in those times where you overcame adversity, think about what types of relationships helped you. So you're extremely powerful. You're brain builders. And all of this is about overcoming challenges. That's what all of this is about. And that's why we really like to use the word adversity a lot. Because so many people have had adversity in their lives. And they usually tie adversity with overcoming adversity, challenge. So this is all about what you can do given an awareness about adversity. And so we mentioned adverse childhood experiences before, but for folks that haven't heard, just wanted to do a primer on it. So there was a study that was done to try and identify whether there were types of experiences that children have that were more impactful than other types of experiences. So they wanted to try and differentiate between, my grandmother passed away at 90, I was really close to her, it's very hard for me, and I was sad a lot, thought about her a lot. Differentiating that from another type of adverse childhood experiences. And so that's what they did. They essentially looked at 10. And this is, I experienced physical abuse. I didn't know where I was going to sleep at night. I didn't know where I was going to eat at night. So they looked at these set of experiences. And one of the things that's also relevant, too, is that adults, we also often forget that adults once were children going through adverse childhood experiences, right? That doesn't end once you turn, 18 and go off to college or something like that. So folks are carrying it with them. And we often forget that about the parents of our children, too. We often forget that empathetic approach to them. So they looked at these 10 experiences, and they said, what can we know about this? What are they correlated to? And the data is pretty profound. So if you've had just 4 or more of those at any point in your life, you're 32 times more likely to have learning and behavior problems in school. Like, that's not 32%. It's 32 times more likely. And in fact, 51% of children that have 4 or more ACEs have learning and behavior problems in school. So we need to stop being surprised that this is an issue. We need to stop being surprised that kids are showing up a certain way. This is the logical, biochemical response to trauma, and it's really healthy. And we'll get into that when we get into the neuroscience. The other thing, though, is that it not just affects learning and behavior, it also affects your immune system. So adversity doesn't just happen to you, it actually happens inside you. It affects your brain and your body. And so children with 2 to 3 times, with 4 or more ACEs have 2 to 3 times greater risk of heart disease and cancer. Many of us have had children who are constantly coming with asthma, who always seem like they have a cold. That is the healthy biological response to adversity in trauma. That's not a problem with that kid. When I first started, I was always wondering why a few of my students were coming sick all the time. This is their body responding in ways that are extremely healthy. And so then also 10 to 12 times greater risk of intravenous drug use and attempted suicide. So if you're thinking about the families and the communities, we might have a narrative about why they might be doing those things. But very rarely do we think of that narrative in connection to the childhood experiences that they might have had. So that's really important to remember. And then ultimately, 8 out of the 10 leading causes of death in the US correlate with exposure to 4 or more ACEs. So this is not just a learning and behavior issue in school. This is a life issue. This is life or death for the children that we're talking about. So you have a lot of different options about how you respond. So our children carry with them a backpack of experiences when they enter the schoolhouse door. And that backpack of experiences, they don't leave it kindly at the schoolhouse door and then walk in for you, ready to go. They carry that with them in hallways, their interactions with everyone else, in classrooms. And that backpack is their brain, right? That same brain that's dealing with what happened last night with my stepfather, or even what happened 3 years ago with my cousin, is the same brain that's trying to figure out what 20 times 17 is. And we can't separate them. It's the same brain.